Hello, everybody. This is Mark Kumar, lifestyle entrepreneur and a proud founder of Simple Podcast Cloud, a platform for podcaster by podcaster. With us, you have one account and you get everything unlimited. In case you're wondering, what in the world is everything unlimited? You get unlimited shows, episode, and pretty much everything you could think of. No limitation whatsoever because we want you to grow your show so you can succeed, and we want to help you do that. So, without any further ado, today we have another amazing podcaster who is going to be sharing some tips, secret, and tricks to help you take your podcasting game to the next game. So, please take your time to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Martel Rowland. I'm the host of Samecast Different Day podcast. My co-host is Tina Marie, who is out due to a pregnancy. She's due December, having a baby boy. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous here, but our podcast is mostly, we try to reach out to normal everyday person. I got into podcasting. I got into podcasting just to get my story out there, and I felt like that wasn't a podcast, especially for people who live in the Midwest. That's really for us. So I just decided to put this podcast together. Then Tina later on joined in and just became a thing for us.
All right, man. That's how it works. Sometimes when you don't plan it, it's the, you succeed by surprising. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
So let's go. So, what is your podcast name?
Samecast Different Day podcast.
Samecast. How did you come up with that unique?
It was crazy because I was like, because I know sometimes we both wasn't gonna be able to host a podcast at one time, but since it was if it was the both of us, it was always gonna be either one of us hosting a podcast, or us and another person. So it was like just way people can be like, oh, just a whole bunch of different people running the podcast. Like, no, it's always gonna be us and another person, or just by ourselves. So that's why it came up the name with the same cast part, and then it just recorded at different days. So that's how it all just came together.
All right, man. That's a unique story. I love it. I love it. So, is there specific topics that you guys cover, or like whatever comes like whatever comes?
It's whatever comes to mind, and it's very unfiltered. I should I should say. So there are some times where you just never know what's going to come out of my mouth most of the time. There are times where we're drinking wine while recording the podcast, so you never know what you'll get.
Man, that sounds like my kind of show. Maybe I should be on the show.
You're always able to come on.
All right, man. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So, when you decided that you were going to have a podcast show and you picked up a very unique name, what was the process that you went through to record your first podcast? Walk me through that.
Oh my God, that first episode, it was horrible. So I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what kind of equipment what to buy. So I actually did a lot of research before going into recording my first episode about equipment and everything and sound. And I had to learn so much stuff before doing it. So for anybody that's out there that's trying to start a podcast, do your research before starting it. But that first, I remember that was like 2 weeks before we started recording. We was like sat down, we were planning out topics, trying to figure out what direction we wanted the podcast to go and what kind of audience did we want to appeal to. So all that kind of went into effect. And then I remember going into the store, buying all this equipment, and like, okay, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So then I actually had to go on YouTube and look up how to hook up all this equipment to get everything to work. And then I think the day we sat down to start recording, it was a disaster. Still didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know how to get the equipment recording. I didn't know how to do anything. So it was a disaster. I'm just gonna be honest. That whole leading up to the thing, it was all a bunch of disaster. But it worked out for us.
Hey, man, every single thing, no matter what it is, everyone who starts is a lot further than the people who are still thinking about it. So, at least you did it.
Yeah, I didn't want to be one of those people that look like that started randomly doing a podcast, and it was just horrible. Because I have came across this guy before, and he was using just his cell phone, and he wasn't using like a quiet area of his house or anything. So there was like dogs barking in the background. You heard doors closing and stuff. So I was like, I did not want to be that person with all the extra sound in the background.
All
And
right.
think between when I started a few months ago and now, over the time, the audio has gotten better. So I'm getting better at this. So it takes time. I've learned that. I had learned to be patient.
I think that's the key here, the patience and consistency, because I don't know how many episodes you're in. If you go back to listening to your very first podcast episode compared to where you are now, you will see the progress from the first to where you are now. And I think what most people do is like after they get like a really good at it and they go back and they change the first episode that they created and then, replace it with the new quality. I think that's a horrible thing to do, because if somebody who is just starting to get to know you, right, and they
Hmm.
get into your podcast show and then they see, or they love, not see, rather listen to, because we're talking about podcasts here, and they listen to all your episodes and there is no progression whatsoever. It sounds like this person sounds the same when they started and where they are now. What are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. I totally agree with that. Even like I say, even the way how I talk on a podcast has changed some since I first started. Like I used to be like really, really nervous doing them now, but now it's like, hey, I don't care. Let's get into this. And I think the listeners can also hear that too, when they listen from when I first started until now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think the more natural and raw you keep it, the
Hmm.
better the content gets, and the more energy and the more ideas that flows between the people that you're talking to. Unless you're doing yourself, even at that same thing, the more natural you keep it is like the idea is going to flow. Or if you're interviewing somebody, or if you have a co-host, the idea is going to flow. It's like the best way I could describe is like, for me at least, podcasting is like going on a Friday night, hanging out with your friends and talking about podcasts and having a beer or two or whatever.
It is so fun because I have done so I've been in this Facebook group and I have interviewed people within the Facebook group and they've been on the podcast and some of them have been able to tell their stories and their journeys. Like I even had transgender people come on and they were talking about how their healthcare and stuff was taken away. Was able to have those conversations and it was like I got a chance to talk with some amazing people doing this and like I learned the stories. Like I did not know that all this was going on. Like there are people who live like literally like 3.5 hours away from me, and I didn't know the struggles that go on there because where I live at is the most populated part of the state and the city. So they live more out in the country area, and I just never knew what was going on out there. So it was like it's big eye opening for me.
Oh, most definitely, man. That was one experience where I'm sure you had plenty more. I have plenty of experiences where I talked to people, interviewed, and had a conversation with them, and then it's like, oh my God. By the
Mhm.
time I was done with it, like one of the gentlemen I could think of, like it, that person always comes up in mind. His name Craig Dias. He was homeless one point in his life. I mean, living on a street, not a thing to his name other than the clothes that he was wearing. And then he turned his life around and had multiple different businesses that were making six figures. And not just stop there. After he had so many multiple different six-figure businesses, he had a health problem where he had to go through dialysis for 7 years and he still didn't give up. I was like, holy cow. I should not make excuses. I feel horrible after listening to him.
I had experiences like that.
It's kind of like, oh my God. So it's like, what are all the like excuses and things that we say to ourselves, like we can't do it? Oh, because I, or like, for example, if somebody wants to create a podcast, like, I can't create a podcast because I don't have a mic. That's not an excuse. That's, that is not an
Whatsoever.
excuse. So, what recommendation would you give, or what advice would you give somebody like, hey, if I want to start my own podcast, what are the things or the steps should I do to just record my first 4 episodes?
I always say just do your research. Do your research and know your audience target. Um, that's mostly what I did was my research, my audience target, and then when you're going into it, just make sure that you can do. If even if you can't don't have the best recording equipment, it's okay. Just don't have a bunch of noise in your background. And that's what I can tell anybody to who wants to start a podcast. And for people who say like they don't have enough time, like I get 1 day off in 9 days, and I work a full-time job, and I manage to do a podcast and get episodes out every week. So there is no excuse, and I still take the time just to do my research and know. And then, um, one thing I can tell people is, I I tended to babble when I first started, and then I had to learn how to stay away from which I know I did a few times on here, but I've gotten better at using less ums when I'm talking, so that can get pretty annoying. So don't make sure you don't use a lot of ums.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a ton of stuff that I learned. Like is one of them, and another one was like if I really want to create emotion and then have that come through my tone, use my body language because that really, really, really sinks it in. As compared to just like, hey, how you doing? My name is Mark Kumar. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur. It's just like very robotic and things like that. It's like no,
Right,
it's like very boring stuff. So use your body language to create emotion, so that way that conversation will get driven, and then other person who is looking at you, if you're recording visually, because I know some people just do audio recording and that's it. I think it's a little more content and more value out of it if you do it visually, because if you have a video call with somebody, you can literally see their self, and if they don't understand something, they'll like kind of twitch their eyes kind of thing, and then you can go deeper into it, as compared
right,
to your audio one, like I don't know what that person feels or thinks. I hope he or she likes what I said. I hope so,
right.
So, so how do you typically record your particular podcasts or shows?
So I do mine mostly through I use Audacity, but when I have people on, it's always either a video call, and if we're not able to do a video call, then I'll do like the Facebook call thing, and that normally tends to work out pretty well.
Wait, hang on. Just so I understand this, what is this Facebook call? I never heard of that before.
So
You use it like a Facebook Messenger and stuff?
yeah, it's through Facebook Messenger. So instead of it being through video, because some people have terrible Wi-Fi, like I did it at the hotel in Green Bay. Um, so some people have terrible Wi-Fi, whatever. So actually, the Facebook video call will work really well. So it's just like putting your mic. I put my cell phone on speaker, and then I just had the microphone by my, because I use two microphones when I record. So this my phone be by the second microphone, and it works perfect.
So wait, so how do you record it then? I mean, I understand. I would think the closest thing I could describe to it is like having a video call where you're like talking on your phone and the person looking at you. It's just a video call, I think, right? So how do you record the
Yeah.
conversation where it is the audio part is somewhat acceptable?
So I did most so basically yeah, the video is I just set the phone up to like I just set my phone up by my microphone, the second microphone. And what it is that I when I go back in and edit it later, if when I listen to it later, I like can turn the volume up on that specific person so that way they can come in more clear, or I can turn myself down so that way that it'll kind of match. So I've learned to do that so that way it really comes through clear.
I see. Very, very slick. I had never heard of that before. Thank you so much for sharing it. I know people are listening that they will appreciate it too. So if you guys
Yeah,
wanna,
oh, sorry. No, because I'm one of those people. I don't have a webcam for my computer yet, so I kind of
gotcha.
do everything through my cell phone. So
Okay.
yeah, I have to find ways to improvise.
There you go, man. Smart way, a budget way, whatever you call it. We'll go with the smart way. How to record your podcast the smart way. Use your damn cell phone because that's you have that with you all the time.
It works.
See, there you go. Cool. All right. So we recorded the podcast and everything's turned out good. And then far as your post-production go, you use Audacity, obviously. You just mentioned it. So is there a lot of post-production that you do, heavy post-production, or just like a very minimum and then that's that?
It's very minimum because I want the podcast to be more authentic as possible. So like I want it to be where they hearing it as in the way it was recorded. So it's very minimum editing. So only time it's like mostly any editing done is when I'm adding in the music for the podcast, which is like the theme music for the podcast. And if so, because sometimes when I record it in different days, so some people will not be able to notice it, but some of the episodes are recorded like 2, 3 days apart. So I have to edit all that stuff together. But most of the time, it's mostly unedited and it's raw, and you get it just exactly how it's recorded. So that way, with my audience, I try to make it seem real as possible, like they're there with me.
I love it, man. That's the only way to record, I feel, because it really gives you a true sense of how easy it is. And you actually get to focus on the thing that you love, which is podcasting, talking to different people, having conversation. Because when I first started, I'll tell you that I didn't do that. I was sitting behind a computer on a Saturday, pretty much 8 hours a day, editing my episodes. And after the third episode, I'm like, this is not going to work out. I have to figure out a better way to do this. So when I was doing the whole photography world business, because I was a photographer as well, like get it right in the camera. So now my thing is get it right in the conversation. If it's there, we're good. If it's not, forget it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I have plenty of conversations that it still saved on my computer, but it did not make it onto the podcast. So it's been somewhere I have completely scrapped, and I have to come to them like, "Hey, what happened to them?" I'm like, well, it didn't work out.
Oh
Sorry.
my, wow. So what happened? Do you have them like a call back or whatever, or you just kind of like left it alone and that's that and not even bother with it?
So that'll be so like it'll be a part where I'm like, you know what, this part of the conversation has seemed really dead, pretty much. So I would just cut that whole part of the conversation out, and then I just move it on to the. So I would go back and edit in and say, hey, we're moving on to such and such part if I have to, and or put in like I learned from some other podcasts they put in like a music transition to like move it along. So I would try to do little stuff like that.
All right,
I
man, that's
mean,
cool.
whatever
That's
works.
yeah, that's pretty cool, sweet. Do the music transition thing, but if at the end of the day, it all boils down to your listeners. What do
Hmm.
they want? So, question for you is, what do your listeners want from your show that you feel they need to have a really good episode?
Oh, they love my honesty. They want the honesty out of me. That's the most important thing I feel like my listeners want is to me to be honest because they to the ones who do follow the podcast on the social media sites, you kind of get to know me and know that I'm a pretty goofy person. So they want that honesty out of me, but at the same time, they want the funny part of me too. So I kind of give them both, but it's some and like I said, there are some episodes where I have to be very serious about what's going on, and I think that's another thing that they like because it's you can be goofy and funny or whatever, but you have to be serious to let them know like, hey, this is something that I really care about, and if it's something that they feel that you really care about, it's something they can probably kind of gravitate towards and care about your same statement that you're trying to get out there. So with my audience, I just try to be as real and as honest as possible with them. I have talked about stuff on the podcast that I haven't even talked about with my own family that's been on a podcast. So they get like the real honest version of me on my podcast.
Wow, that is outstanding. Just out of curiosity, does your family member listen to your podcast?
Uh, yes, they do. I After one of the episodes aired, like, oh, so you talked about me, huh? I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, I've gotten in trouble for some stuff that was said on there, but I was like, hey, that was my honest opinion. I already got calls like, oh, I don't think you should have mentioned that on there. Like, well, that was what was going on in my life right now, and I wanted to share that with the audience because it might have been somebody else going through that same situation and they needed that help. So it's out there.
Yeah, man, definitely. It's like the best way I could describe is like whatever you're going through your life, somebody's gonna either go through it, have already went through it, or going to go through it, and they're behind you.
Exactly.
So you're always. I feel like you are always gonna be in the middle. So if you share something that people are right behind you, they'll be like, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing this. I had that happen to me so many times where I felt like, I don't think I should really share that because it's a little personal. I don't know anybody going to care for it. Then after a while, like, screw it, I'll just do it. And then I get this messages and emails like, thank you, man, sharing. That means a lot. So I totally agree. Share it, definitely share it. Obviously, don't share it too much, within the reason, I guess. Go with that.
I know that a lot of my episodes had a little E on there for explicit. So, like I tell people, you never know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Cool, cool.
But
All
when
right.
I'm on other people's podcasts, I do tone it down. So,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, but I love your energy, man. That's really cool. So how do you go about promoting it? Like, let's say your podcast is already recorded, you're happy with the end result. Now it's time to publish it on your podcast host, whatever you use, that's fine. So after that becomes like, how do you get the word out? Like, how do you tell people like, hey, by the way, go and listen to my podcast. It's really up.
So most of I promote a lot on Facebook and Twitter and all these things, but I work in the largest hospital in the state, and where in the state where I work at. So I tell a lot of my coworkers and people that I'm around there about my podcast, and it was crazy because I think within the last 2 or 3 episodes, it was like the first time where I didn't do any promotion and people were listening to it. So I'm finally starting to see a little uptick in people listening. So I'm kind of proud of that.
All right, man. Go where the audiences are, and the best audiences are where you work and your family member. If you work at especially really big environment, like, oh, hey man, did you listen to my podcast? No, here's a link, go check it out. Or just,
Right.
you know, as they say, Google my name, podcast my name, it'll be there.
Yeah, another way, I used to do this thing called Wine at Six, which a lot of my Facebook people tune into, even my coworkers. So they'd be like, "Oh, if you're like this on Facebook at Wine at Six, how are you on the podcast?" So that has kind of helped me get some listeners too, because it's so those who okay, so for those who are just now learning about Wine at Six, I used to do this thing called Wine at Six. I do it on and off sometimes. So at 6 o'clock, I go live on Facebook and I do one, and I just me and my brother mostly be with me, and I use that as a tool to promote the podcast, let people ask questions, or sometimes might not never they don't ever know, but sometimes the pod that's actually part of the podcast. So there's been times where I've been on Facebook Live and been recording the audio. A lot of people don't know when they let them come in on the live with me that they're on the podcast, and so I let them know later. But so Wine at Six is mostly me. We drinking wine. So every time within like a 3 hour time period, 2 or 3 hours, we on live. We probably went through like 3 bottles of wine. So at this point, you don't know what's coming out of our mouths. So it's just a way to entertain people and get them listening to the podcast, and they go find it.
All right,
I
man,
sound
that's
like an
that's
outfit now that I say that out loud.
I will leave that one alone. But it's whatever you need to do to create your own content, you know, that's what it boils down to. So
Yeah, I recently just joined TikTok because people say TikTok is a good way to promote too. So we'll see. I haven't posted any videos yet because I have yet. So I'm one of those people who don't know how to use TikTok yet. So yeah,
see, if bet you once upon a time you don't know how to do podcasts, but here you are.
yeah, true.
You will figure out. Then there's a phrase that I use: "It's everything is figure outable." You know, if you have a will, you will figure it out. Especially with the age that we're living right now and the time that we're living. If you don't know, you Google it or YouTube it, you will figure it out in a matter of minutes.
That is so true. You will figure it out because I remember for talking for so long about doing a podcast. I think this was like a whole year in advance before I talked about this a whole year ago before I actually got into starting a podcast. So I think around like sometime around September, October last year is actually when I actually started putting everything into place. So yeah, it's taken a lot to figure out learning.
Yep,
So
it's
everybody
just
out there, you'll figure it out.
you will figure it out, and you know that's that. So cool. All right, man. So now what I want to ask you is, if somebody wanted to, let's put it this way, wherever you are in life right now, all the
Mhm.
things that you know, good, bad, ugly, and really good or great, and, and the younger version of yourself, let's say 21,
Mhm.
ask you for advice to get to where you are faster, what advice would you give your younger self?
Pay attention and be willing to learn and shut up and listen is what I would tell my younger self. Because I can say when I was younger, uh I didn't listen a lot and I thought that I knew everything and going into life type situation. So a little backstory. So back when I was in like I think about I say about 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, I started a YouTube channel. It was the Martel Rowland Show YouTube channel. And I was on there and I was being really reckless doing this YouTube channel. Like I was like it got to the point where I was just saying stuff just to get attention. And it was bad. So like, and then when I look back on that now, I was like, wow, that was totally not the reflection of me, because I was like, it just wasn't me. And then I was like, if I would have told my younger self then now to just pay attention and learn and shut up and listen to what people have to tell you to lead you in the right direction, I probably would have been somewhere totally different in my life right now. So that's the advice I'll give my younger self, because I was like, even back then, I was like, okay, you know what? I see all these people blowing up on YouTube, and it isn't working for me. And that's why I said I got reckless, and I was just attack people on there and just say anything. And I was like, no, I can't. And then I look back on there and I'm like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have did that. And it's crazy because everything is still up, and I didn't take it down. So I'm pretty sure like somewhere down the line might come back and bite me in the butt. But I say, hey, that was a learning experience for me. And so we already got to learn from something. So that right there, I even learned it to this day. I'm still learning from that situation.
All right, fair advice. Just do that, and that's that. Fair advice,
and
definitely.
and get you in a financial advisor, because on my next episode that's complete, that's coming out on the 29th. Um, that's going to be what some of the things I'm going to be talking about is actually finances that a lot of young people need to pay attention to. Because one of the things I talked about, I remember I had got myself together when I got a financial advisor, and I always tell younger people out there, there's this thing called a cash value life insurance policy. And when you get this cash value life insurance, every time you pay your life insurance policy, they put money into a separate account for you, and it just sits there and it builds and it builds and it builds. And somewhere down the line, you might need some extra cash, or you need some help, or a little push that you need. You got a little cushion to work with. So that's what I'm trying to spread some of my wisdom now that I've learned.
There you go, man. And I know I just want to add just a little bit to that particular thing is like, rather than putting damn money in your 401k, open up a savings account where you just put money in there every single week, bi-weekly, whenever you get paid, right? And if you do like, hey man, I don't want to do the whole bank account thing because I already have plenty of bank accounts and things of that nature, follow this particular system. I have used it and it worked out great. Envelope system. Every single week, you take X amount of dollars. Let's say if you make $100, you take 3% of that $100, so $3, you put it into your this envelope, and you accumulate that. You keep adding, keep adding, keep adding, and then before you know it, you're gonna have a good amount of money. And that if one day you wanted to go on a nice vacation, you go to the envelope, you take out the damn cash, and you pay for it, and you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And that's good advice I hear, because I come up. It's crazy because I'm not even 30 yet, and I get so annoyed by when I hear the 21s and the 22-year-olds. I heard them talking, and I'm like, your concept of life and how money work and how to handle money is totally wrong. And that's what had made me want to do that episode. Because I keep telling people, I keep telling them like I do have a savings account, but then on top of having that savings account, I have that life insurance policy with the cash value, whereas money's still going in there. So I have these two different outlets that I can go to in case I need money. And that money, that separate account that's made for me, that the life insurance company made for me, I have not touched it in 6 years. So it's a good cushion for people out there, and it's something that you don't even think of. Like for people out there who got kids, like you can start this account when your kid is like a baby, and if you go 18 years without touching that account, like that kid can be set, and then on top of that, that kid can take over that account and then start adding their own money to it. So it's just, a good tool out there that I want to get out there and stay out of debt.
That is a really, really good topic. We can have like a gazillion episodes about that. How to stay
Yeah.
out of debt. Step one, don't get a credit card.
See, that was one of my things. I made that mistake because I have 7 credit cards and I just paid them all off except one. So yeah, stay out of debt, people.
All right, cool, man. So another question I want to ask you, like, what is it that you currently working on that you are so passionate, so fired up, where you're like, man, I can't wait to get up in the morning and do this, whatever that thing is.
To be honest, it's just the podcast. It's the only thing I'm working on right now. I want to. I've been thinking about venturing into other projects, but I haven't quite had the time to sit down and put everything together yet. So right now, I'm just mainly focusing on the podcast right now and trying to build the podcast up. So that's about it for me right
All
now.
right. Speaking of the podcast, tell me, where can people go and listen to your awesome podcast. Number one. Number two, how can they get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you?
So they can always get in touch with me on Facebook, and then the podcast Facebook page is actually, if you click on your messenger link, it'll message us directly, and it comes straight to our phone or computer. Me and Tina both have access to it, so you get a response from either one of us. Um, you can get a check by email, which you can email me it's scddpodcast@gmail.com. So you can reach me there. And then I'm happy to announce, I didn't get a chance to announce it on the podcast yet, but we finally made it onto Amazon Music. So the podcast is officially on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Deezer, Castbox. It's another streaming platform that just went up overseas in India that we're now a part of. So I'm very excited. So we're just about everywhere you can find a podcast.
Is it Ghana by any chance? No,
It is
Ghana.
in Ghana.
It's
It
a
starts
something.
with a J. I can't remember the name of it. It's like JAV something. I can't remember the name of.
Jeevan something, I guess.
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So we just got on there, so I'm excited. So I went on there. It's like it's not a lot of people that's like American podcasts that are on there because it's mostly like overseas podcasts. So I'm like, and just check the numbers today. Like we're getting hits from like Africa and India. We got some hits from Germany due to that app, to us being on there. So I was like, it's been amazing.
That's pretty cool, man. All right. So one last thing I want to ask you is like before we go away is speaking of getting hits, what is the stats or analytics that tells you you are doing pretty good in podcasting world?
To be honest, I don't. I look at it, but at the same time, I try to don't pay attention to it just because just for the simple fact that you know, like I said, I learned that it takes time. And like the one thing that I could say I kind of do look at is just downloads. I just check out the downloads I get for each episode, whatever to show how I'm doing. I noticed that a lot of people like the movie review episodes, and a lot of people like when a few months ago we did an episode where we was like trying to like the best black movie of all time or something like that. It's like a two-part episode, so people's like stuff like that. But I kind of look at which episodes that people are watching more to try to figure out basic content around that, while still adding in some of the other things. But I try not to really pay attention to a lot of that stuff because it'll break your brain because you be trying to figure out, well, what am I doing wrong, or what can I do better, or what can I add to make this like. Just don't do it. Just be you and just let your podcast grow on its own, and it does after over time.
Definitely, guys. The best advice I can give you, like you said, just give it time. Over time, it will grow. Just like a little cute little baby, it takes time for it to grow. Whether he or she will grow up, and then he or she will. It will take her time to pedal around, and before you know, she's gonna be walking around and run around your house. So it takes time.
And being consistent. And also, like it's okay to take breaks from doing episodes, but don't take. For me, I don't try to take too long a break. So most of the times, maybe like a 2 week gap where I wouldn't upload something. But now I'm at the point. I think I have some episodes that's already recorded. I think I have like 3 or 4 episodes that are already recorded. They're already uploaded. They're just scheduled to release at certain dates. So, and if you're gonna take some time away where you really like, I need some time off recording, you just record some episodes in advance. That'll help you out too. That way you don't burn yourself out. Because most of the time I'm recording 2 or 3 episodes a day. I had recorded two today before earlier today. I did two, and then it was like, oh, the whole Breonna Taylor thing happened, and I wanted to put my input on that. Like, I just put out an episode Tuesday, but I'm like, nah, another one just dropped today. It was only like 4 minutes long, but it was just like, it needed to be said. Like, we're not gonna. This is a battle we're not gonna lose, and I wanted to make it clear that it's crazy what's going on in this world, but we can't let that stop us from the battle, and we're going to keep the battle going. So I had to put that out there today. So yeah, there are some times where I just got to drop those special episodes in the middle of the week. So yeah, stuff happens. So like I said,
Absolutely.
a lot of people, just take your time, be consistent. Try not to pay attention to a lot of the numbers because numbers will really throw you out of your comfort zone and just make you like go all over the place like I did back in YouTube. So don't pay attention to the numbers.
Absolutely, man. Then the best advice I can add to that is like, hey, give yourself at least 2 months. Whether you like it or you don't like it, you are going to create the content no matter what it is. you are going to create content. Then obviously, the best thing I also do is like, normally what I do is when I create a content for my show, I schedule time in from this time to this time is recording time. And that's it. Just like you having a meeting. Once you schedule time in, you go in there, you record it, knock it out. Literally, if you think about it, it doesn't take that long. If you're just doing it by yourself, 10 to 20 minutes, and you're done. And then post-production, if you don't do any post-production like you and me, we're done. Upload and off you go. Schedule the thing out. We're good.
And you got to be willing to work with people, because there's this guy Image View. His name is Kami Gecko, and he lives in Johannesburg, South Africa. So because of the time difference, I had to literally get up at like 5 a.m. in the morning to prepare to do the podcast with him, because it was like, well, by the time it was ready for us to start recording, it was like 5, 6 o'clock his time. So like I said, you got to be willing to work with people, and you got to be patient. Because Mark was patient with me, especially after my last debacle. So you have to be patient with people.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have my share of like waking up like early in the morning or staying up late at night, like around 1, 2 o'clock, just so I could record a podcast, because I truly love this. I love this thing. And, if people listen to me or have been listening to me for a while, they could tell the passion that goes through it. It's like, I will do whatever it takes to record it and whatever I got to do.
Yeah, so like for me, I have most record mine on Thursdays. And because so I wait till after, because it's like I live in a whole house, so like I use the dining room as my basically like my studio. So when people starts to wake up in the morning and stuff, the neighbors start to get up and they're loud and stuff. So I get up at 6:30 in the morning to record all of my episodes. So all my episodes are recorded in the morning, just to avoid all the extra sound. That's how dedicated I am to making sure that my background is quiet enough for my audience, that I get up on my off day at 6:30 in the morning to do this.
I get it, man. Like normally, like what the tip that I share with other people is like, if you're in a room and you know no one else is coming, lock the room from inside. No one ever gonna get in.
See, I don't have that option. Yeah, I'm working on. So I've been working on trying to get me a studio built. So I was gonna turn my basement into a studio, but my house was built in, I believe, 1924. So it's having some leakage issue with the foundation. So I'm working on that. But hopefully soon I have the whole studio put together, and then it'll be worth it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for being here, taking the time to talking to us, me, including the Simple Podcast Cloud team. Truly thanks you. And we wish you success, happiness, and amazing things coming towards your way. And this part of the show, I always leave it to the people I'm interviewing. The floor is all yours. You can share anything, promote anything, whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
I just want everybody to just tune into the podcast, support, leave those 5-star ratings for me on Apple if y'all can. That always help. You can also, like I said, you can find a podcast on Apple, Google Podcasts. These are all streaming platforms is out there. But on top of the podcast, my whole main thing right now is that I want people to make sure you register to vote. Go out there and vote, because there's so much injustice and anger and so much things going on in the world right there. So that's the kind of thing I want to take time right now just to make sure that you go out and vote, because that's very important. And I want people to know, don't just vote for president, because your local and your state and your federal government all matters, because the people that's up there in Congress who signs the bills and make the bills and make things possible for all of you out there, you need to have those local representatives who can help them out and get to that point where they can help you. So please make sure you get out there and you vote. Make your voices heard.
That's right. If you don't vote for the president, you vote for this man right here. You go iTunes and give him a 5-star rating. All right, man. Thank you so much for being here once again.
Thank you for having me on.